Welcome to Navigating Betrayal. I'm going to lose my microphone. Webinar, podcast, and YouTube channel. I'm your host, Kaylee Dunn, betrayal navigation coach, betrayal trauma therapist for over a decade, and admin of this free Facebook group, Humans Navigating Betrayal. Today, I'd like to introduce you to Lisa. She is a Christian writer, speaker, and certified life coach with a passion for helping women overcome trauma, discover their true passion and purpose, and grow in emotional maturity. A trauma survivor herself, Lisa understands the deep challenges that many women face and bring a message of hope and healing through her writing and speaking engagement. So we're going to be discussing betrayal to breakthrough, turning pain into power. Be sure to stick around if you'd like to the end. There'll be an opportunity for those of you who are live in the group to ask some questions, and we can answer those towards the end. But thank you so much for joining us, Lisa. And before we start, please let me know if I missed anything or if there's anything that you want to share before we just jump right in.
No, that is great, Kaylee. I just wanted to say what an honor it is to be here with you all today. So thank you so much, Kaylee, for this opportunity. I'm really grateful.
Well, we're so glad to have you, Lisa. So thank you so much. And, I hope you're okay with me sharing. We went back and forth in emails and kind of talked about your story and what you share in coaching and what you share with the people in your space. And you said something that really struck me. And I said, let's do a podcast on this because the reality is there's a lot of power in what you said. I resonated it with my own personal story and then with the stories of a lot of the women that I've worked with over the years. And so if you don't mind me quoting it, and then we can jump into like what we're going to talk about.
Absolutely.
So she said, as
Mhm.
she was talking about her story to me in this email, quote, this earthquake has a way of, meaning betrayal, right? Has a
Mhm.
way of also shaking free things in me that needed changing, regardless of my relationship with my spouse. In that regard, the recovery process was amazing. And I learned so much,
Mhm.
healed from not just my betrayal trauma, but other things in my past, and grew into a mature, emotionally healthy person. And
Mhm.
I've just heard this outcome for those who choose to really engage in this process of healing in their own timing and at their own pacing, but really
Mhm.
say, you know what, I'm going to do this thing. Like you said, regardless of whether the relationship is going to work out, those who do this work, those who engage deeply, find that other parts of themselves kind of jump on the journey and heal as well. And so I wanted to kind of flesh that out today and talk a little bit more with you and have a conversation here with the group on what that's like. And for those of you who might be in the early stages, you might go, "Oh, this isn't for me right in this exact moment." And that's
Yeah.
totally fine. You can either listen and
Mhm.
kind of put it on a shelf for when you're ready, or you can push pause and come back to it another time. But I still think that this discussion is important. So I wonder if we could start with what were let's just start with the betrayal. Then how did you start processing?
Mhm. Yeah, that's such a great question. So the first emotions I had were shock, rage, not even
Hmm.
anger.
Yeah, no, skip
I
over
was
anger,
I
straight to
was
rage.
way past anger.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, definitely rage and a tremendous amount of grief. We I won't go into details too much for the sake of time, but had been married 23 years, just for
Yeah.
context, three teenagers,
Mm.
and our marriage had been hard all
Yeah.
along. I always knew something was off. I did not know what it was.
Right.
And I had, as a person of faith, I had prayed and prayed and prayed for change. And I had tried to manage and control change
Right.
in him, right? None of that. Well, the managing and the controlling certainly did not work. And so, it just felt like I'd been hit literally by a Mack truck. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And then, we were so fortunate in our story because it was actually our pastor who had found out about this. And
Mm.
he called my husband into his office and confronted him. And that's what started this whole thing
Wow.
off. Well, here's the deal. A lot of pastors are really not, sadly, not all pastors are safe places for this, but
Yeah.
our pastor was awesome.
Wow. Yeah.
Awesome. And I know that's probably more unusual than it is the norm. I mean, we really had for that horrible, cataclysmic event.
Mm-hmm.
To have our pastor who knew us for years, and he really did start us off like in a very a, a good way,
A good place.
a good
And
place. Yeah.
and I think like to kind of to go to the heart of that, to the principle of it, because you're right that actually there's been a lot of research done on who do betrayed partners go to first, and very often
Yeah.
the first person is a religious leader. And then we
Hmm.
also know that not very often, but often, that that's not a good experience. So I love that you brought that up because that's for sure true. And
Yeah.
the principle of what I hear you saying is that when at the very beginning you're getting in with the right people, and for you that
Hmm.
happened to be your pastor, that can create just a soft place and a good foundation to launch from when you're met with the right energy and the right people.
Absolutely. Well, and the reason that he was a good place for us to start with this whole nightmare is he actually had resources for us
Mm,
that we would never have a clue, right? We were just,
right.
especially as a betrayed partner, it's like you're thrown. I don't know if anybody skis in here. I don't ski, but I know this illustration of if you fall into a snowbank and it's
Mm.
dangerous because you don't know which way is up.
Right. So you could be digging down.
Yeah, you could be digging down. You just don't know what you don't know. And so to have somebody from day one say, do this, 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 and this, that's really why I wrote my book, Kaylee, is because
Hmm.
it is so vital to start betrayed partners off on that right foot,
Right.
helping them to know what do you do in those first 90 days. That's the part of the title of my book is just here's the bullet points. Do
Right.
this, and this, because we're all in trauma brain, right? It's like
Hmm.
we have a concussion, we're not sleeping well, we're not processing very well.
Yeah.
There's such an overload of pain. And so to
Yeah.
have somebody come alongside you from day one to say, let me do the thinking for you in this moment,
I
right?
love that.
And so,
Yeah, exactly. And exactly right. To have kind of just like those step-by-step guide of like, what do I do now? And then what do
mm,
I do? And to kind of have a picture that's not too overwhelming,
yes.
but is just giving you those first 90-day steps in that crisis phase is so
Yeah.
powerful. And I also like the piece you said, which is that for your pastor or for any helper that's kind of on the scene at the moment of crisis,
Hmm.
to have good resources and not think, oh, I need to be the one to be able to solve all these problems. But if it's not my area of expertise, but instead to know who to send people to. And that can just be so powerful, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so my first, you had asked, what were some of those first things that you did when you were processing? So number one is I had to create a safe space for myself. I
Mm-hmm.
actually asked my husband to leave the house. So he was out of the house for 2.5 months, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you imagine, I'm an illustration person, I'm very visual. So if you can imagine the person you trust most, your primary relationship, okay, comes at you with a knife. And so I'm there, like I'm trying to stop the bleeding. And meanwhile, he's still in the room with the knife.
Right.
Okay. So I had to just have him not in the room with me, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's the only way otherwise we're constantly in that place of fight or flight.
Right. Right.
So creating a
Yeah.
safe space is number one to me for sure.
Absolutely. And so many people do that in different ways and everybody's nervous system's a little bit different, but the
Right.
point that you're talking about is so crucial, which is that we need to attune to our body's needs for safety in order to heal.
Right.
And for some people that means long term and maybe the relationship ends to be able to do that. And for some that's going to mean a short term separation.
Absolutely.
For some it could mean
Absolutely.
separate rooms. Like it's going to look different for everyone, but to
Absolutely.
say we need
Yes.
safety and our nervous system needs a place to just
Yeah. Yeah. It
breathe
could
and
literally be like, hey,
so
I'm going to go
crucial.
back in my closet for a while and shut the door, you
Yeah.
know? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
yeah. So
But to have a place,
yeah.
I really appreciate that. Kind of fast forwarding a little bit into your
Mm-hmm.
story, can you describe the moment or the time period when, because it might not have been a single moment for you, but maybe it was,
Mm.
when you realized that this earthquake to your relationship as you described it, could also be an opportunity for personal growth outside of the
Mhm.
relationship. When did that
Yes.
start to formulate, and what did you start to realize?
Yeah. So, one of the things in me about going through betrayal is I was so self-righteous, you know. I mean, I was a victim 1,000%. He is the one who owned all of the blame. And he did. He owned all of his
Right.
choices and all of his behaviors 1,000%.
Yeah.
So I was in therapy. I had a wonderful, wonderful therapist, and she gently, not day one at
Yeah.
all,
No.
right? But as we were getting into our therapy sessions, she did start to say, Lisa, I wonder what it was in you that had you choose to be attracted to a guy like this, or choose to go forward in a relationship with a guy like this. In our story, Kaylee, there were red flags during engagement,
Okay.
and I tried to postpone the wedding multiple times. I was not sure that he was the guy that I should be marrying. But what I realized by her question was, wow, I saw red flags, but I chose to move forward anyway.
Okay.
Why was that? Let's just explore that. So it's not
Interesting.
this condemnation on me at all. It was truly an opportunity to explore why you chose to do that. And what I found, Kaylee, was that I was a huge people pleaser.
Mm.
My parents are wonderful, and I didn't want to cause embarrassment to them by
Mm.
postponing or canceling, a wedding. And it was a
Okay.
large wedding, and oh my goodness, I just couldn't I put that on myself. So do you see what I'm saying though?
Yeah,
That,
no, I'm hearing you. I think this conversation can be so I talk about it like walking down a tightrope when you have this conversation in betrayal,
yes,
because two things can be true at the same time.
that's
And
right.
in every betrayal case, two things aren't always true. And I'll talk about that for a second if that's okay with you, because your story is so important and the way that it happened is so important. And the way that you're discussing it isn't so important. But I want people to be able to hear it. So two things can be true. One is that when a person chooses to betray, they chose to do that. The
Right.
onus is on them, the agency is on them, 100% of the accountability needs to be on them. They did that thing. That is not on the
Absolutely.
betrayed partner. And in reality, betrayed partners are victims of that
Right.
harm, right? Because
Yes,
you didn't do anything to
absolutely.
cause him to do it. You didn't ask for it. You didn't say, well, since I saw the red flags and then just ignored them, it's my fault, right? We're not going that direction.
Exactly.
So
Not at
that
all.
that's true, right? The
Yep.
other thing that can be true, and not for every betrayed partner, because some guys, some humans, men or women, can just be very manipulative. And you might be
Yes.
really smart, and oftentimes a lot of, I'm sure you are very smart and aware and clear, and there's just a lot of manipulation. But what can happen for most of us, because all of us are human and none of us are perfect, is that we have stuff, right? None of us are just like these magical
Right.
unicorns that walked into here. And so we have stuff, and some of it might be people pleasing for some, it might be something else for another. And there's a lot of different things that people bring in. It might be a childhood wound, it could be different things that happened to us when we were young that we also couldn't control, right? The types of parents we had, things like that. And so
Hmm.
what I hear you saying is that for you to be able to hold those two things at the same time was difficult, to
Hmm.
say, this isn't my fault. I didn't cause it. It's not
Right.
my job to fix it. This is all
Right.
on him. I'm a victim of this. And there were signs, and I didn't see them for some reason. Let's get curious with that. And maybe there's growth for me there, even if this marriage doesn't work. And that, in a way,
Exactly.
felt empowering to you because you were in
Exactly.
a place, and again, like you said, not day one, maybe not even year one for a lot of us, myself included, but to go, is there something that was happening for me at that time when I was young? Can I throw love at myself and my young self to go, what was going on there? And do I still carry some of those qualities? Sorry for hijacking a bit, but I wanted to make sure people are hearing what you're saying and not hearing what you're not saying, you know?
Thank you. No, Kaylee, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying. So thank you
Yeah.
for all of your clarity. Is that what I found as I was healing from this horrible trauma that was caused by my partner is an opportunity to go deeper with myself and to heal not only from that earth-shaking trauma, but even more healing on top of that. And that's what I found is just an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. I I liken it, another illustration is, I was hit by this Mack truck. I mean, me and the
Mm-hmm.
kids are in the car. The kids and I are in the car. It's a beautiful day. We're driving along. All of a sudden, we get hit by a Mack truck, which was the betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
We're thrown from the car. I need to be in ICU. And we don't have time to go off on this tangent, but betrayal trauma has so much shame associated with it. There is
Mm-hmm.
no literally taking somebody to a hospital. And I felt in those early days like I should be in a hospital with
Mm-hmm.
around the clock care. Somebody should be
Mm-hmm. Like,
monitoring
why
me.
is no one taking care of me?
Yeah. And instead,
Mm-hmm.
it can be so isolating. So that's why you need those first responders. And we can talk maybe about setting up your support system. But the point is, in those early days, you're in the ICU. And as you begin to heal, okay, now we're moving you to a hospital room. Now we're moving you to rehab. And then you get out of that. You do physical therapy. You're getting stronger. But Kaylee, I feel now like a marathon runner in that story. And I
Mm-hmm.
never ran before this
Mm-hmm.
trauma happened. And that's what I
Right.
really want to help women to know and get a vision,
Yep.
which can be so, so hard depending on where you are in your
Right.
recovery to even begin to imagine that as
Well,
an outcome. But
yeah, well,
yeah.
and I use that exact analogy, and I love that. And I've run into
Do
other
you
betrayed
really?
partners who've gone through it and feel it and use the same analogy.
Oh,
Right, because
okay.
you're following the rules of the road and a drunk driver hits you, like they're the
That's
one doing the
right.
thing, but
That's
I
right.
still have to go get the surgery on my broken legs and I still
That's
have to
right.
do the things. But the other piece I think that's important to point out is that sometimes when you're in the ICU or you're not in the ICU, you're laying by the side of the road and
Yeah.
no one's attending to you and you're kind of like dragging yourself there, right? You
Yeah.
kind of can get the message, at least historically. I think it's getting better. And part of my work is to help get that better because there used to be an energy or a message of kind of like, you, well, what did you do wrong so that we can fix your broken legs? Or like, well, you did something
Right.
wrong to get here. And that can feel just this fight. And so remembering, right?
Mhm.
I was following the rules of the road. I didn't do
Right.
anything wrong to cause this. And then like
That's
you
right.
described, well, now that I'm doing my physical therapy and now that I can walk, like I can actually take this opportunity to run and become a mental and emotional marathon runner and
Yeah.
relationally and all of those things. And that I can choose, as I say, it's a little crass, but I say to kind of take this crap pile and turn it into gold, right? Like
That's
that
right.
we can
Yeah.
do that through this process. So I love that you bring that analogy here and then extend it into to that marathon runner. And that it was a therapist who gently, kindly, at the right moment,
Right.
invited some curiosity. And then you took that opportunity to go, oh, maybe there's some things here I can work on and I can strengthen and I can grow in. So I love that. So again, go in as much or little detail as you like. So you talked a little bit
Yeah.
about the people pleasing. Were there any other things, or in addition to that, if you want to add on to that, what this experience revealed about yourself that you wanted to grow on? And then what steps did you take to grow in those areas?
Mm. Yeah. So it allowed me to kind of get down to the bare bones of who I was.
Yeah.
It's so important in betrayal trauma recovery to focus on yourself.
Yes.
I couldn't manage or control what my husband was or was not willing to do. I didn't concern myself with his recovery. I concerned myself with my recovery. And that allowed me to be able to, I think, go
Mm.
deeper into myself to examine, like, how can I just become the best version of me? And it was really cool because just again, I as a person of faith, like I saw God bringing people into my life kind of out of the woodwork that
Yeah.
I I just was oblivious to, and he
Mm-hmm.
would just bring somebody along. So I had a girlfriend, she's a girlfriend now, and she was introduced to me, and she had been through betrayal trauma, and she was very involved with a class at our church called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. It's a lot of Lee's emotionally healthy spirituality. It's kind of a burdensome title, quite honestly. But the point of this class was, you can be a person of faith and know Bible verses and go to church every day and still be the most dysfunctional person. And that being a person of faith does not just magically make you emotionally healthy or emotionally mature. And
Mm-hmm.
so this study really just kind of took us through different topics, like a little bit about codependency, a little bit about being passive aggressive, a little bit about over functioning, a little bit about boundaries. And so just these emotionally healthy topics that I had been really oblivious to. I really didn't know terms and things like that, but
Mm.
it opened up a new world for me, Kaylee,
Yeah.
that I found to be very beneficial um, for my healing. It gave me a lot of hope. I saw myself changing and I liked who I was becoming.
Yeah. I love that. So when you started to open yourself up to go, wait a minute, rather than focus all of my energy, like of course I got to get to safety first, right? And we're not saying don't get to safety, but then rather than focus on like, well, is he doing this? Is he doing that? You said, okay, I'm going to focus on me because I matter. And that's actually really empowering. It's not, I'm going to focus on me because I caused this, but I'm going to focus on me because gosh dang it, like I matter, my healing matters.
That's
And
right.
then when you did, God started
Yeah,
bringing to you the
that's right.
answers that you needed. And I've seen that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't have data to show it because it's a spiritual thing, but I've seen that time and time again is when we kind of open our heart to like, okay, universe, okay, multiverse, whatever is out there, God, Allah, whoever, I am ready for more. That
That's right.
those people and those answers specific to your path, right, come
Right.
to you, and then you go, oh, there it is, right? And that right book comes to you, or that
Yes,
right podcast, or that right whatever. A
exactly.
class starts to speak to you that maybe wouldn't speak to the betrayed woman sitting, a different person.
Yes, we're each so unique. Every single woman's story is their own unique story.
Hmm.
And every person's recovery is their unique journey. And that's what I love seeing as I'm coaching women is this amazing fresh awareness will just click on with them where they realize they have power. They have choices for
Yes.
themselves. And it's great to see them gain freedom from unhealthy behaviors completely outside of their marriage relationship. Okay. We're not
Right.
talking about marriage relationship at all.
Hmm.
We're just talking about her and her becoming her best, most beautiful,
Right.
joyful, peaceful self. And so it's
Yeah.
really fun to see women come into that awareness. Is awesome.
Right. And if we think about that, when we feel empowered and we have clarity of mind and clarity of heart, we're actually in one of the best places to protect ourselves from future harm. And now I don't mean we can prevent
Hmm.
betrayal because people choose what they're going to choose, but
Hmm.
we're in a place to make the type of decisions we might need to make if betrayal continues, for example, or if we enter a new
Absolutely.
relationship and betrayal
Yes.
comes into our life.
Absolutely. You want to get stronger and heal from not just the wounds that have been done through this particular betrayal trauma. I had trauma earlier in my life that
Hmm.
I never really got healing from. And so, again, this earthquake revealed, it shook loose some things
Mm.
that revealed, like, oh, I have several areas in my life that could use some attention and some love and care. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love that. So just as the earthquake kind of shakes and we start to see maybe some of our weaknesses or our places that need some support or growth
Yeah.
for ourselves, also our strengths can come and emerge that we maybe didn't really recognize in ourselves. So I was wondering if for
Yes.
you that happened, that you noticed any strengths come to the surface that you're like, wow, this is kind of untapped energy that I've never used before. And maybe,
You know, I remember where I was. It was early in trauma, this betrayal trauma. And I remember somebody said, "Hey, maybe try taking a hot bath at night. And here's some recovery books for you or whatever." So I had this recovery book and I'm sitting in my warm, bathtub and I've got the spa music on and the candles lit. And I'm reading this book, Kaylee. and she starts talking about boundaries, and she starts saying, you need to start asking for what you need. Well, I almost dropped the book because I had heard the term boundaries, but I had no idea what she was talking about.
Mm.
And so I learned, once I kind of figured that piece out of like what a boundary is, and how to use a boundary as a blessing for myself, not to build a wall for someone else,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
to protect me.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm like, oh, I'm good at boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And that empowered me and gave me confidence. And then also, I was laughing at that line where she said, you need to ask for what you need. And I don't know if anybody who's listening can relate to this, but, I'm a mom. I was a wife. I was an employee. And I thought, I know what all these other people need. I have no idea what
Mm.
I need. And it's not because I'm this, so selfless, but I just hadn't really thought about that. And
Right.
so I started to really look inward and have some self-reflection about, well, what do I need? What are my preferences? And how can I communicate that to people around me to get my needs met within myself? And then if I
Mm-hmm.
need help or whatever, just
Sure.
learn to ask for that. So that was awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. Kind of to see this thing that you were like, I don't even know what that is, to go to a point where you're like, oh, I actually can do this and I'm good at it and it's improving my life in a way that I didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think that those are some of those things that we don't always think about. It's like, what are the strengths that I'm gaining or learning from in this
That's a
process?
great question.
So,
It's good to
yeah,
think about that. Yeah. It's good to think
yeah,
about it.
awesome. So I know that for many of us, we can put in tons of effort and work, and really grow ourselves, and our partner doesn't come along. And that
That's right.
happens, and then those relationships aren't going to stay together, right? Because we outgrow someone, and that doesn't always work. But I wonder for
That's right.
you, your transformation that you saw in yourself that you chose to take, what influence did you see that happen on your relationships in general? But then
Hmm.
also, if you'd like to share with your partner.
Hmm. Yeah. As I began to get healing, I felt safe. I had the support that I needed. I had wise advisors. I have this, one of the little chapters in my book is about wise advisors. So that's like, a really good therapist, a good
Mhm.
support group. I even worked the 12 steps. There's actually 12 steps for people who've been through betrayal trauma, and I had a sponsor. It was very healing for me. So as I
Mm-hmm.
began to feel a little stronger, I'm starting to get my breath back and my feet under me. I did notice my relationships were just getting better and healthier all around me. And, one of the things I said to my children, because I was raised in a home where everybody needed to be okay, we
Mm,
really didn't have space for any hard feelings. And
mm,
so when I was raising my children, if anybody was hurting, let me fix it, let me fix it.
mhm,
Or, oh, here, put a smile on, you're okay. Right.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I learned through this experience that it's okay to sit with your pain. It's okay to sit with hard feelings. And so in my relationship with my children, this is just an example. I circled back with my kids and I said to them, look, our family is a safe place for all your feelings. And you don't have to
mm.
be okay. You can show up exactly as you are today and be who you are and be where you are, and that's okay. And that was huge, Kaylee.
Wow. Yeah. Did you find that your
Hmm.
kids were able to make a
Yes,
shift and you've seen that change for your whole family?
absolutely. Yes. I mean, we were always close, a close
Yeah.
family. And so there was safety and trust to a large extent with the kids.
Yeah.
But oh, it was just such, I could kind of see their shoulders relax
Wow.
of like, yeah. And we've all been on a healing journey. And I think that's the other blessing out of this is because I chose to focus on my own recovery, my kids watched that. And my
Mm,
husband, I will say this for all the listeners, my husband did choose recovery really hardcore. Like
mm-hmm.
he was desperate to get us back.
Mhm.
And he was truly broken. And not everyone has that story, but that was his story. He fully
Yeah.
embraced recovery. And that's the only reason that we are together today.
Yeah.
And I hope it's okay. Can I use another illustration to talk
Of
about
course.
my
Yeah.
relationship with him? Because this is
Hmm.
something I see a lot of my clients struggling with is I use this illustration of I'm in my car and my husband's in his car, and we're both on this road towards recovery and towards
Hmm.
healing. But I'm in my car doing my healing. I'm going at my pace down this road, and he's in his car doing his healing, and he's going his pace down this road. And I'm not driving my car into his lane, and he's not driving his car into my lane.
Mm.
But I was able to look over every once in a while and just observe his recovery, and I could
Hmm.
observe. And because he did choose healing and recovery to the to the full extent that I think you can, then ultimately, once I had gotten to a place of healing and he had gotten to a place in his recovery, then we were able to get back in the same car together, but not
Yeah.
until then.
Right. Right. I love that analogy. I love that description. Because I think what it speaks to, which we kind of said earlier, where you were saying, like, I'm not focusing on him at all. I'm kind of right here on my stuff. But the reality was you weren't also going, he can be doing whatever he wants and he can, whatever he's doing doesn't matter and he can act out however he wants and I'm over here, which sometimes that messaging comes out or it can feel like just stay on your side and you feel like, but
Mm,
what if he's over there? And what you're saying here is that, well, no, I was paying attention. Like I was like, are you doing the
that's right.
work? I'm glancing over and going, okay, then for today we can stay. That's what I used to always say. For today we can stay. Maybe not tomorrow. We'll find
That's
out.
right. Tomorrow is not a promise.
Tomorrow is not a
Tomorrow is not
promise.
a
So,
promise.
but maybe in those moments,
Yes,
okay, like he's
that's
still
right.
doing his thing. I'm sensing in my gut, I'm sensing with God, like that this is
Hmm.
okay. And then we'll see what tomorrow brings until you get to that place where enough time and
That's right.
behavioral proof and energetic
Yes.
proof happens where you go, okay,
Yeah.
okay, this is a
Yeah.
transformed human and we can do this, right? And I'm in a space
Yeah.
with my trauma and my healing that I want to do this.
Yes.
But that's a process.
My car was my boundary illustration, right? I'm in the
Mm-hmm.
car. The doors are locked on my car.
You're like, not you. You don't get to come in.
You do not get to come in my car.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love the way that you said that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I liked the analogy. I think it's really helpful for people. Last time we came on the podcast, we talked a lot about relationships and how really if a couple is staying together for the now, all the work that you're doing is for the relationship in a way, like if both of you are doing it. But sometimes there are instances where the betrayed partner, regardless of gender, might need to just keep driving because the other partner's not doing
Exactly.
their work,
That's right. That's right.
and there's grief and sadness and fear there too. I don't know if that came up
Yes.
for you, but I know for me at the beginning stages, my partner also was pretty broken and devastated and did his work, which is why we're still married today. But I do think there are moments and times where I was like leaps and bounds ahead and that was scary. I don't know if you had any of those moments where there was concern about what if I grow too fast, because we're talking about personal growth and that can be a
Yeah.
barrier, I think.
Yeah. It's very sticky when I think it's very sticky when there's the possibility that the marriage is going to work, right? There's some nice clean cut about, nope, I'm done. This I'm
Yeah.
moving
It's a
on and
different kind of grief. It's a
it's
different kind of
it's
pain.
grieving and it's hard.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
totally absolutely it's grieving and it's got its own hardness for sure. If I choose to sort of stay in this relationship or see what could be for this relationship, it is sticky and tricky in that regard because we're individuals and we're going to have our own nuances in our healing and recovery. And, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, right?
Hmm.
And so yes, there were times that I very much questioned, if this was ever gonna be able to come back together. So it's
Yeah.
moment by moment sometimes, day
Yeah.
by day sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say that every betrayed partner I've talked to, whether that's a client or a colleague, or a professional that I've worked with, a friend, for betrayed partners, every single one of them who are kind of in this post-betrayal growth camp that you're in and describing will say that it's not like every day I was like, we're working together. Or
Oh gosh,
even if
yeah.
there's the exit, which happens often, it's not like even for your own healing, it was like this linear point A to point B
Hmm.
journey. And so, when we get
Yeah.
on podcasts or write books or whatever, sometimes it sounds like, wow, on paper, this looks really simple.
Right.
But if
Gosh.
it doesn't feel simple, you're probably doing it right because it's messy. Like you said, it's
It's
sticky.
so messy. It is messy. And that's where we need to have so much self-compassion. Oh my goodness. And I am my hardest critic for sure.
Hmm.
And I don't know if anybody's an Enneagram person, but I'm an Enneagram 3, which we're like the achievers,
Hmm.
And so I can put sometimes pressure on myself. But that's another thing that I learned in this journey is slow down, go at your own pace. Um, there is no pressure, there's no right or wrong, and it's never about perfection. It's truly about progress.
Hmm.
So you would have never heard those words from me before. So this
Before.
is good. You're hearing growth
Yep.
out of me. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I
Yeah.
hear you. And that ability, I think that's such a skill and ability to be able to self-reflect in that way and kind of speaks to that emotional maturity that some
Mm.
people naturally have when they're younger and most of us don't. To be able to reflect and go, is this serving me? Is this getting me where
Mhm.
I want to go? And
Mhm.
how, can I grow through this? So
Yeah.
I love that. We're kind of coming on time, so I'm trying to see what other
Yep.
things I wanted to discuss. I think
Yeah.
you gave some really good advice just then, but is there any other pieces of advice or just things that you'd say to a
Mhm.
betrayed person who wants to advocate for themselves
Mhm.
and wants to take that next step in
Mhm.
their own personal growth? Like, what advice would you
Yeah.
give?
Well, oh man, this is where I wish I could just sit on a couch next to each woman or,
I
on
know.
this call and just look you in the eye and say, you can do this. You can. You can do this. And it may feel like you're going to be in this place, this broken place forever, but you won't. This is for
Mm,
now. It is not forever. So be compassionate with yourself and don't wait for someone else to advocate for you.
yeah.
Find your voice. Find your voice. You have courage within yourself. You can speak up and you can say, I am drawing a boundary that I will hold, or I need this. And it's no one else's responsibility to get you to seek your healing and that kind of thing, right? Like we get to choose if we're going to take that next step. So I would have a lot of compassion and also a little bit of that loving nudge to say, reach deep and take that next step that you need to take. What is your gut telling you? What is your soul telling you that is that next right step? And also not to get overwhelmed. I love that terminology of what is the next right step
Yeah.
because I mean, I'm 6 years past D-Day. I'm still a work in progress. So it could be overwhelming, but to go back, say, no, 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 let's take just that next right step.
Yeah. I love all of that. So much so, right? Be gentle with ourselves and recognize that you're going to have to be the one to start, but there's so many
Yeah,
people that will support you and will help
absolutely.
you and will help carry you when you start that journey. And like you said, when
Mm-hmm.
you open your heart to that, that's when you start finding those right places. And I think so many people in this group, because they're in the group, they're doing that, they're looking
Mm-hmm.
for that help and support. So I really, really appreciate that. How are you helping others considering, you're 6 years out, you're working from,
Mm-hmm.
as we say, scars and not open wounds. You're working to help people in that
Mm-hmm.
space. Where can they find you? And what are you doing in kind of this post
Mm-hmm.
betrayal growth phase where you're helping others?
Yeah, well, I like to say I'm a survivor and a thriver.
Yeah.
And I want to come alongside other women and help them move from survivor to thriver. So that's why I got my coaching certification. And I'm currently getting a mental health coaching certification and a trauma-informed coaching certification. So I'm still learning and working towards becoming just the best support for women, so that I can walk well alongside of you. So we do, my husband and I have a website, because he also is doing this. He's mentoring men and coming alongside men. And so our website is called ourrelentlesspursuit.com.
Okay.
Our Relentless Pursuit. I do have a book that's on Amazon, so I'll just kind of hold that up.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, this is a really, it's almost like a booklet. I intentionally kept it very brief because of that early trauma brain. It can feel so overwhelming. So I do urge you, if you're early on, or even if you've been in this journey for a while, but you haven't really gotten what's traction with your recovery, this could be a good resource for you, give you some starting points to help put
Yeah.
you on a good road. And then my husband actually just published his first book called Relentless Pursuit, that is great for men. Well, it's great for men, I think, but also, especially, it's an addictive recovery and addiction recovery book that is so, so
Mm-hmm.
helpful. And then my Instagram is called A Brave and Beautiful Life. And so I'd love for you to follow me on there. And if you just want to visit, I would love to just be able to listen to your story and see if I could be helpful to you. I just would love to be a help to you as a coach. So, thank
Yeah.
you, Kaylee. Thank
Of
you.
course. Well, thank you so much. And we'll put those links down into the show notes for those who are listening later. Because, every coaching can be such an important part of the healing journey to really just have, whether that's a sponsor or a coach, in addition, for most of us, to therapy,
Mm,
to really have that person in your pocket that you can really connect with on this really personal level, and who's been there and who kind of sees what's coming and can direct. So
mm,
I'm always so happy to promote any coaches and therapists who are doing this work with good intent and who are educating themselves. And so we're so grateful to have you on here, Lisa, to share your offerings and to really share your story of hope and transformation. And I think that sometimes when we're very first going through betrayal, hearing people who are, I mean, I'm 17 years out, and hearing people who are down the road, 6 years out, however long, who are doing well, can actually kind of hurt and can be kind of hard to go,
mm,
oh, I'll never get there. Or what if I don't get there? Or her story's different or his story's
mm,
different. But I actually think it's important for us to tell those stories of hope when there's a lot of
mm,
hopelessness in the world. And while every story is different,
mm,
I appreciate you telling yours and what's worked for
mm.
you. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Absolutely, Kaylee. Thank you. It was an honor to be here.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone. And we hope that you're just going to do so well. And we're sending out all of our love. Thank you so much, everybody.
Mhm.
Bye bye.